Hey everyone, it's George from Blockchain DXV, and today I have a really prominent and a prolific speaker called as Nav Gupta. He's the CEO and founder of Chaarmi World Inc. Now listen guys, I've been interviewing quite a lot of people, and when I spoke to Nav Gupta, there is a different sense of positivity. There's a sense of enthusiasm when he talks about Metaverse. Now I really wish you guys could have seen the video version because the moment he talks about Metaverse, his body language changes, and that is purely to go and help the end user. He's not here to make money, but he's focusing more on the tech. What I really liked about this project, he focused on three things. One is how does Charmy save consumers time? How does it save cost and the better user experience? Now, personally, I've tried to use Charmy, and I have to say that the user experience in comparison to, let's say, other metaverse protocols is definitely superior. And in this podcast, he gave his reasoning for starting Metaverse. What I really liked is, how he started the whole Metaverse journey. He has a really strong experience working in the tech industry, so he knows how the coding works. But I was really surprised towards the end. Told me about, the different license that he has. He's also into fitness. He also dabbles a little bit on real estate. So really, really important podcast. A lot of useful information. And he shared some information what other businesses can do to go out and build Metaverse. And the key element of this podcast was something which he said about humanity. So when he's talking about humanity and trying to be a better individual, and how Charmy does actually have certain things in mind to making Metaverse a much safer and a secure place for its end users. So definitely check it out. And in case if you do have any feedback or suggestions, drop me an email at info@blockchaindxb.com, or you can also give a feedback to Nav Gupta. All of his details will be in the show notes below. So check this out, guys. Firstly, now, thank you so much for doing this. Really appreciate, you taking your time out of your busy schedule. And we are doing this on a Tuesday, which is a rather busy day for everyone. Really appreciate, you taking the time and informing the listeners what you're trying to build in order to make life easier for people in the metaverse. So thank you so much for that. To start off with, how has your day been so far?
It's been exciting. It's been a blessing. Thank God I'm alive today. So that's a big key. Is we're living in a time post COVID, and I'm not dead. I'm alive, and there's a lot of people who didn't get that opportunity. And so my hope is that with these technologies that we're building, we can now allow ourselves to still connect without having to worry about some of those challenges that that we went through these past years, which were a challenge.
Absolutely, 100% agree on that. Before we start talking about Charmy and how you're trying to help businesses benefit in the metaverse, can you tell our listeners a bit about yourself and how you got introduced to metaverse? Because I did go to your LinkedIn profile and you do have some really strong experience working with Unity and quite a lot more. So talk to us about your experience getting into metaverse.
Thank you so much for that. And that's a great question. I was working at Unity 3D, and Unity is a video game engine. It's a tool that's used by many developers and people around the world who want to make video games. That's where its roots started. And then later on, it started getting into, other parts, such as manufacturing, education, military, industrial, and so on, right? So
Yep.
Unity started getting used a lot. And a lot of these solutions were VR and AR, augmented reality, and so on. And bringing that power of being able to do things fast to the markets, right, to the mainstream. What happened was now all the roots of the metaverse started off in video games, with World of Warcraft, and you had Minecraft, and so on. And things started coming in with blockchain when we started adding in, where you could own plots of land and you get that ownership, and you get Decentraland and so on. That's when Mark Zuckerberg came in with Facebook and said, we're going to change everything to Meta. And now you've got the metaverse really taking off to the next level, because the thing was, it's not just like it didn't exist. We had metaverse experiences and so on, but what really has pushed it forward has been, Mark Zuckerberg, one, and the blockchain, two. And at that time, I was working at Unity, and I was sitting down, and I was like, yeah, I make these experiences. They were, for me, it was a normal thing, right? For others, though, it's like you're going to spend many years to get there. And anyone in the world who had a problem with Unity, they'd go to Unity's website, they type in help, and they'd come to Unity Live Help, which was me and my team at the time. And so we were helping so many developers with many of these solutions. And I hear about metaverse and I'd be like, what is this stuff, right? Like, I mean, it looks like it's just a video game that people are just saying, it's a lot of fun, which is cool. But then what happened was people were like, we're going to make this incredible thing that looks better than PlayStation 5 level graphics. Next year, just buy our land and you're going to see it happen. And I'm like, really? That looks so cool. Oh my goodness. I can't wait. Explain to me now how you're going to do something like that when World of Warcraft, which is considered the best experience of what the metaverse is, in my opinion, and Second Life, can't even get to those levels with some of the top game developers in the world, years and years of development, many resources. All right. Not even Facebook, I would say, is a proper contender. I'm talking about World of Warcraft because they're in the gaming industry. They've been doing this for years. You are telling me that you're going to bring something that's better than PlayStation 5 graphics with everything better than World of Warcraft in 1 year's time. All we have to do is give you money. I knew that was a scam. And I thought, okay, who's going to fall for this? It must be someone stupid falling for this. And it broke my heart when I would see not just a couple $1,000s, not just hundreds of thousands, but hundreds of millions of dollars spent on these claimed universes, metaverses, galaxies. By I don't want to put anyone on the spot here, but people who would never be able to do it.
Yep.
There's no way in hell that would happen. And it crushed my heart that I would see projects fail, people lose their money, and it's not that they knew better because you're trusting people who were in technology, people who were in this. They were not necessarily in gaming, right? Because I was in gaming for a long time, and I knew there was no way in hell that you were going to make this when you've got some of the best people in the world who can't even figure this out. And they've got, when you're looking at numbers here, you got things like Decentraland. Last stat I saw was like from 2021 was 300,000 monthly active users, and you've got World of Warcraft at 27 million monthly active users. The data is skewed, and you've got this new company that just pops up out of nowhere saying, "Buy my virtual land. I have no data, no stats, but just I promise you, if you give me all your money, we're going to solve this problem next year or in a couple of years." That's when I made it my mission to bring out real technology, no nonsense. It should be fast, easy to use, cost effective. And that's how I entered the metaverse, with a mission to save people from the nonsense that was coming out and build real technology for the real metaverse that's going to be coming, not this set of scams that people were losing their money on. And that's why I'm in the metaverse today.
That to be honest is a brilliant motivation, and what I'm getting a feel is that you genuinely want to help people. The fact that you've got experience working in Unity and you have identified the key difference, which I think a lot of people in the metaverse industry still haven't identified. They're just going into the bandwagon that Decentraland is doing so many things. The prices are going up, so the price is the key indicator because of which they tend to go into decentralized rent in your case. And hopefully, in the case of Chaarmi, which I'll try to find out, you're focusing more on the tech, trying to help individuals and businesses. That is absolutely a brilliant way to start this podcast as
Absolutely.
well. So, now can you tell our listeners what is Chaarmi and how does it help individuals and businesses in the metaverse?
Beautiful question. So Chaarmi came from what I just explained to you is a solution. It is a web-based no-code solution. If you've ever heard of WordPress, which revolutionized the internet industry, I think the last stat I saw was about 50% of websites. I don't know if it's true, but over 50% of websites are using WordPress, where you just throw it on any web server and you can make your website without any programming. That was the vision with Chaarmi, is can we build a galaxy with no programming? You just take Chaarmi, throw it on the web server, and a full galaxy appears, and you just click, drag, save, done. And that's what Chaarmi is. For as low as just 99 US to 149 US dollars a month, you can have a full metaverse galaxy up and running with click and drag mechanics, with the whole WordPress style of existence, that whole idea where it works on the web and it works on Google Chrome, on PC, Mac, and even in Oculus Quest VR. So that's the power of Chaarmi, and with no programming at all required for anybody. You just go in and you click and drag over 1,300 objects, and make these beautiful experiences where people can jump from plot to plot within your galaxy or from galaxy to galaxy within Chaarmi, existences. So if you have a Chaarmi galaxy and I've got a Chaarmi galaxy, we can have your users jump between because it's just a web URL. That's it.
Excellent. So, just for $99, you're doing pretty much everything which a lot of the competitors are still working on. So,
That's right.
I definitely think, and one thing which we talked about earlier as well, in the field that I got, even when I was researching your website, you're helping the customers in three things. One is time, cost, and quality. You're making it
Yeah.
affordable, you're saving a lot of time, and the user experience. And this is not because, we are in this podcast. What our listeners should do is, go to the website. The link for the website and all the details for Nav and his project will be in the show notes below. There's no comparison between the website if you were to compare Charmy with, let's say, Decentraland or Sandbox. It does give me an impression that Decentraland is still stuck in the 1990s, whereas Charmy is, 2022 and moving forward. So absolutely brilliant way of explaining
And
what Charmy is.
thank you
Yeah.
so much for that. And I'll be clear with the listeners as well. Decentraland is based on the same technology as Chaarmi. We're all facing as technologists, we're all facing this battle of balancing graphics quality with user amount. So with Chaarmi, we've got less users per plot that you're going to be able to put in, and that's because we're balancing also the quality of the visuals. If I reduce the quality of the visuals, sure, I could pump in more users, but just because you have a lot of users, you degrade the quality of the overall visuals. And so that's the challenge now with Chaarmi, because we got that balance. We could do between 10 to 20 people per plot in an experience. Thus, we're able to put more objects in, and it looks a lot nicer and a higher quality. And we're focused more importantly on why do you need the metaverse? What are you going to build that brings people in and gets them excited? And you actually hit a great point. Many of the people who are using any of these free tools or other technologies, it's either too low in quality, and I've seen things that look like they were made in the 80s or 90s, it looks like, and everyone's like, is that the metaverse? And so this was another part of the question that was coming up. And working at Unity, I was like, we can do better. So Unity is that nice mix in between. It's not the best graphics quality, it's not the worst graphic quality, and it works, very, very well. You can put it on a lot of different platforms. But if you want the best quality, in my opinion, it's Unreal Engine. And a lot of people in the industry, in the space, know that Unreal is that top level. But once again, you need to learn the programming. It's going to take time. You need a lot of dev team and money. So it does take a lot of that cost. But with Chaarmi, you could start off fast, get into the metaverse, get to the point where you're making some good money, and then you hire those teams that are bigger and larger for some of those larger metaverse experiences.
You just touched based on the next question, which I was going to ask. I was going to ask now, in terms of users, to get started with Charmy, are there any prerequisites or any basic requirements to go ahead and utilize the service? But I think you've pretty much covered most of it as well.
And if I've missed anything, I'll just say here, if you've got a domain, Chaarmi is standardizing the metaverse domain across the world. So right now, if you remember the internet, everyone typed in www dot, right?
Yep.
What Chaarmi is doing is we are giving you an additional subdomain. So instead of www dot, you'll now be typing in metaverse dot domain dot extension. So if you have a domain, for example,
Okay.
right, and let's say chaarmi.com, now you would have your metaverse experience at metaverse.chaarmi.com, or in the future, metaverse.google.com or metaverse.abc.com, or whatever that domain is. And from Chaarmi Cloud experience, all you would do is provide us that domain that you want. We would send you the A record IP address, and within
Okay.
24 hours, your Chaarmi Galaxy is up and running.
And is there like a search option? Because what I'm thinking right now is maybe for my podcast, I would plan to have
That's
metaverse.blockchain.charmy.com.
right.
That sounds really interesting. That is so. Is there like a search
Well, no,
engine,
not
or do
even
we have
Chaarmi.
to?
So metaverse.blockchain.com. So that's
Oh,
it.
excellent. Oh, okay,
Yeah,
excellent.
yeah.
Okay. So is there like a search engine where a user can check it, or do I have to email you guys for that, or how does that thing work?
No, so that's how our technology works.
Okay.
We've actually set it up in such a way that it's a metaverse subdomain that you're creating. So you can have your own domain no matter what it is, and the metaverse experience is always on the metaverse subdomain for you.
Now, this is a positive shocker and a surprise, because what I was thinking that is apart from everything else that you're doing. So makes it even brilliant. So definitely, what I'm going to do is after we're done with this podcast, I'm definitely going to go ahead and maybe subscribe for that as well. So
Please,
absolutely
absolutely.
fantastic. And what I wanted to find out, with reference to Charmy, can you get a bit more technical information in terms of, how is Charmy a bit different to, let's say, from your competitors, what they're building right now, some of the not so known competitors? What is it separates Charmy from its competitors?
Beautiful. So first and foremost, very hard to find competitors in the space. There's maybe just a handful of companies even trying to solve this metaverse dilemma. When people are starting out, they're looking at these engines or these tools to try and create metaverse. They're finding some free stuff online. You might find a Babylon project here and there that can do it, but now you have to go and you have to figure out the coding and so on. There's a few, and I'd say maybe about two or three that I've actually learned about that are anywhere near what Chaarmi has. And that too, they're doing it in a different direction. So I've met one, which is a friend of mine, and he's making the Shopify metaverse. And so his goal is now only focus on shopping and high quality shopping experiences. But then that's it. Chaarmi is here to be the WordPress sort of idea. We want to engulf everybody with, building this metaverse experience out. And what brings us to that system, which is a little bit more, I would say, different, is the fact that we are on a web browser. Hence, we get so many different devices. Just by doing that, you don't have to download a piece of software, which is what many of these other competitors have done. The strength of that is, yes, you can actually pump out more users, higher graphics, but then you definitely need a very powerful laptop. And on top of that, it may not work on a Mac. It may not work on PC if it was built on a Mac, let's say, for example. And then what about Oculus Quest and VR? And so this has been the challenge, is all of these different solutions have been specific to certain platforms. Whereas with Chaarmi, because it works in the browser, we're able to hit all of these platforms, PC, Mac, and Oculus Quest VR. So then you as a user can go right into Chaarmi, click a few buttons, and it just works on all of those. Yeah.
That is absolutely brilliant. So, just a one stop solution. So, that is absolutely fantastic. And what I wanted to ask you now, from your point of view as the CEO and founder of Charmy, what are your ambitions and where do you see, Charmy World Inc., let's say 5 years down the line or 10 years down the line?
Great question. Thank you for that. My vision is to get everyone into the metaverse. I did not come into this, industry to make it a fad or a toy. Even though it started in the world of games, if you've ever heard of friends or family who got so engulfed inside of World of Warcraft, you're wondering what was that magical thing that kept them there, and for some, actually, some went to some extremes. If their avatar died, they did some very foolish stuff in the real physical world. I mean, it gets very immersive. My goal and hope is to bring Chaarmi to the masses. I want to have at least 1 million galaxies or more powered by Chaarmi in the next 5 to 7 years. And by putting it at this cost price of just 99 to 149 US a month, it literally is a no-brainer for everybody. You should be able to get in without having to say, oh, it's going to cost me a lot of money or it's going to take me too much time. You can start here and now with metaverse tech that we know and understand, which is a website. Like, we understand websites today, right? You can take this metaverse tech and start exploring the metaverse. And guess what? For all of you who are listening today, if you just do this and you figure out how to use the metaverse and actually monetize your industry, maybe you're a lawyer, maybe you're an engineer, maybe you're a real estate agent who's like, you know what, I'm coming in, I want to try this stuff. If you can figure out with Chaarmi how to make the metaverse work for you, and you can actually start generating revenue properly with real services in the metaverse and creating real stuff rather than just a cash grab and let's just try and get everyone to buy some NFT magically and maybe I make money. But if you bring real services, in my opinion, real value to people, and you figure out how to use the metaverse in your industry, you'll be the first. And when you are the first, now you can start replicating to all the other people in your industry and you become the leader in the market. And that's what happened. Sure, there was other stores that tried to come out, other people who tried to come out with their online shopping. But today, when you think of online shopping, who's the leader? Amazon, right? But that's because they started first. When
Yep.
you look at when they started in the early days of the internet, right? Where there was other search engines, so many, but who started first was Google. They started at the beginning. They started building it out, and they kept it simple, and that was it, right? You see these sorts of people, and you go back and you look at their history. When did they start at the beginning of the internet? They literally started in the 90s when the internet just launched. So for those who are starting now in the metaverse, it's a repeat of history, right? And we had that again. People who are listening, you guys will remember we had the same type of internet stuff happen again in, I believe it was the 2010s or the early late 2000s with
Yep.
social media, right? You had Twitter and Instagram and so on. Imagine those first users of Twitter and YouTube and Instagram. They're the names that we look at today. And if you are going into a business today, think about this. Most business owners or anyone who's going to start a company today, what are the two main things that you are going to go into business for sure with? A website and some social media of some kind, whether it's a Facebook or Instagram or something, right? You can't even think about starting a business without that today, right?
Yep.
And that's exactly it. I want everyone to come into Chaarmi, start with your Metaverse Galaxies today, because one day everyone's going to come up and be like, you need a website, you need your social, and you need your Metaverse play. You need a Chaarmi Galaxy, right? Don't be the last person in my opinion.
And one question, this is something which I've been thinking quite often is, in the near future, do you think that there is a possibility of a completely new industry which will be created in the metaverse? Because before social media, we didn't know about, this whole narrative of social media. So do you think there is an entirely new industry which will be created in the metaverse? What are your thoughts on that?
It's already being created, actually,
Mhm.
right? We've got metaverse architects and engineers who are creating plots of land. Already a full industry that's being developed. People who need to create those plots of land. So many people, even though they can create the plots of land themselves, you also need a visual mindset. Maybe an interior designer or a landscaper would be great as the next metaverse architects, right? That's
Yep.
going to be a big thing. Where now, you know what? Some company comes in. Back in the olden days, this is how web developers came into place. People didn't want to develop, even though WordPress existed. They said, "Here's my money, make me these web pages," right? And that's the exact same thing now. We're gonna get that where people, even if you have Chaarmi, people are gonna come up to you and say, "I don't know this metaverse business stuff. Here's my money, make it for me." And thus, metaverse architects and what we're calling the Metaverse Solution Partners Program is in place now, where we train you on how to do that, and you become the metaverse expert in your area of the world, and you start bringing people into the metaverse, and you start building an entire metaverse business out of
Yep.
this, which is huge. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and that was going to my next question because on your LinkedIn profile, you did mention about the affiliate program. So can you just talk to our listeners a little bit more about that as well?
Right. So the affiliate program is we're here if you're going to bring out more customers into the metaverse. We're giving you a commission structure of 20% of the monthly fee. We only make it right now on the monthly fee, and we're keeping it very simple. And later on, we're going to have even stores. We're going to have our store where you can actually sell different types of virtual lands that have been created or different objects. 3D modelers will come in. I mean, this is the key now is anyone who's a 3D modeler. That is a huge thing that's going to be coming into place. And then AI. AI is going to be coming in and understanding how AI models move and all that other stuff. That's going to be another role is how can we actually create these worlds and experiences now? It's no longer just you've got, if you think about the world of the web, you have your web designers, you got your UI, UX, right? All of that. We're going to have the same thing, but for metaverse. You're going to have your metaverse architects or designers who are going to create those plots of land. Maybe it's a landscaper today who is saying, "Oh man, robots are replacing my job," or maybe it's like an interior designer saying, "AI is figuring it out." Well, guess what? You're actually set for the metaverse because you've got that designer's eye. That's great. And then for those who are event planners or party planners or stuff like that, well, we are going to need that in the metaverse. That's going to become the future of UI UX design. How are people experiencing this virtual experience?
Yep.
We need to have those planners who've actually done that in the real world, replicating that in the virtual world. So these are the sorts of jobs that are going to start coming in. And then on top of that, policing. It's not a joke. What's happening right now is you go into some of these worlds, it's a whole bunch of children at this moment. Tomorrow it's going to be adults who are coming in and they're doing things that, in the physical worlds we would never do. But
Yep.
as technology becomes more and more real, I just saw eSkin. I think it was Samsung that's developing eSkin where you'll feel the reactions if someone touches you, right? Chaarmi's thinking about sexual harassment and things like that from the beginning. We've got spheres of protection on our avatars. We're thinking about this tech as it starts evolving over time. How can we make sure that
Yep.
our users are protected? Because one day, the immersion of these experiences will be so real that it'll be hard to differentiate between, the physical human world and these virtual worlds. And that's going to now become a new line of actual jobs where we're going to need psychologists on board to say, hey guys, come on back from the virtual world. This is the physical reality. I mean, it's okay that you spend some time there,
Yep.
and it's very useful. There's times where it is very useful, but it's like in the virtual world, if I can fly, doesn't mean I can fly in a physical world. And you might get so used to a point where it's like going to my job, I come into my virtual world and I have to fly to the other building because that's my normal day to day. You get so used to that, oh my goodness, one day you wake up in your physical building and you're like, oh yeah, I got to go to work, and you're jumping off a building. These will become a realistic thing where psychologists will be needed to help us to differentiate the worlds and say, oh, guess what? You know what? We need to have a certain, indicator that tells us that we're not in a virtual world. That's how real this will start becoming over these next years ahead.
So interesting you talked about psychologists in the metaverse because my niece, she's 14 years old and she wants to be a psychologist. And just 2 days ago, I was talking about, the role of psychologist and giving consultation session in the metaverse. And we were just having a discussion about that. So I'm definitely going to make a listen to this part of the podcast as well. So absolutely
That's right.
beautiful and really informative stuff. Now, what I wanted to find out the next few questions is, this is about the Metaverse Standards Forum. And we'd also like to thank Alex, who introduced both of us via the Metaverse Standards Forum. So I wanted to know, in terms of now, how did you get introduced to the Metaverse Standards Forum? And how have you
Absolutely.
benefited by Metaverse Standards Forum and vice versa?
Well, already there's benefit. As you can see, I'm coming
Yeah,
to your podcast, and
yeah,
there's a lot of stuff. But the Metaverse Standards Forum started off as an initiative by, a lot of people coming together, and it was the Kronos Group. I believe they've also done several other great initiatives for standardization and creating, standards around many different things. I believe GLB and GLTF was one of theirs as well. But the point is, they wanted to bring together all of these companies, and that's what ended up happening was, they thought maybe just a couple, a handful of people might come. It happened that over now 1,500 companies in the metaverse from around the world, from as big as Meta, from Facebook Meta, Google, Nvidia, and so on, all
correct.
the way up to all the others who are getting into the space right now, and everyone in between has started joining. And you guys can also join at any time. There's participant members and there's principal members. Each one brings something to the table, but we now are able to actually have these conversations from all levels of the playing field. And there is a lot. There is a lot of conversations that happen behind the doors. There's those who are proponents of blockchain and those who are against blockchain who are talking about this. There's those who are centralized companies, like you've got the Metas and so on, and you've got the decentralized companies who are fighting for, we need to go against centralization, and everyone in between talking about the metaverse. And so this is the thing here, is now you've got all of these different viewpoints and ideas, and everyone is coming up to try and build in answers that at times are not actually for us to answer. And here's what I mean by that. Ultimately, who's going to be able to answer many of these questions are going to be the end users, the people who are using the technology at the end of the day. Just like the internet right now, if you ask anyone about the internet, everyone will have a different definition. We're all right. If you go to a child, it's what connects their iPad to YouTube. You go to an older person who's got grandkids, it's that modem box that sits next to the TV that connects them to see their grandkids. And if you ask a web technologist, they'll say it's a bunch of code on a whole bunch of servers around the world. And we're all right.
Yeah,
Everybody's right. And so this is going to be the challenge, is as we've got all these competing ideas and so on, in my opinion, they're all right. Everyone's got their own, area. And then you've got those who go really deep into like the history of metaverse, and they go into the snow crash and they talk about the details. And that's the book actually that, brought the terminology or that term metaverse. And so they'll go deep into that book and what it talked about, and they'll go to the author and kind of say, what was your vision? And they, becomes
yeah.
like that sort of thing. Where it's going to go is going to be all up to us, in my opinion. But the Metaverse Standards Forum is trying to kind of bring everyone together to the table. Let's discuss this. Let's see areas that we can focus on. And one of the main focuses right now is interoperability. That is the key there. That is the biggest thing. And this comes back to the beginning of the internet, in my opinion.
Yep.
Back in the day, we had lots of little pockets of intranets just BBSs and so on. For those who are old enough to remember what that is, right? But we used to dial up into these different computers, right? Everyone who knows what that
Yeah.
sound is, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But the point is, back in those days, everything was fragmented. And the ones who were bigger intranets, like you had AOL, which had so much stuff, but you would have to enter a specific computer and then you get access to those worlds until finally there was a protocol that interconnected all of these things into the internet. And
Yep.
that is exactly what we're, hoping that will come out of this as one of the big things is, can I jump from a Chaarmi galaxy into a Decentraland, into a sandbox, into World of Warcraft, or and back and forth again into all these other experiences? Is there a way that is standardized across the board that we could do? And that's just one part of the interoperability. We also have the other portions, such as 3D objects and avatars and clothing and fashion and digital and phygital and all these other different areas that we need to now look at. How can we all cooperate so that one person who's a technologist is not building some solution that already exists and we're wasting time as human beings? You know what I mean? That's the hope, anyway. So
Absolutely, excellent. And do you have any advice, let's say, to the members from Metaverse Standards Forum, or do you have any suggestions where they can probably improve on, or any direction that you think they could take?
you know what? I think Neil does a great job. I mean, we have our meetings consistently. It's not easy. There's over 1,500 competing minds. You've got people in there who are very successful in their areas, and they've made a lot of money and a lot of success. It's going to be a challenge already just to take care of all of these competing minds. And my hope is that we can come together as problem solvers ultimately to help bring real technology to the plate. I think ultimately that's what everyone wants is, let's make this real. At the same time, you've got proponents from different areas and different walks of life who are coming in, right? Women representation is a big one. It is very, very big now. As the world is starting to change, we want to now showcase that, it's more than just male dominance, which is what we've seen in the industry of the tech industry. But with the internet now, well, it doesn't matter who you are, you can go in, and anonymity, right? What we saw with, and this is my personal opinion on it, what we saw with the Web 2 world was the fact that, someone else owns all our information. But in Web 3 world, we can own our information and we can actually have access to that. Where now, if I go somewhere, that's up to me. If I want to see an ad, that's up to me. And if I am going to see an ad, sure, the company's making money, the advertiser's making money, or that whole thing. But now even I should be making money from that as well because it's my data, right? So these are the sorts of things that I truly hope that we start bringing together. Is that the customization now is no longer on corporate customization. We are now at the user level of customization, where each one of us has a voice, has an experience that is just as important as someone else in the world. And each one of us, when we bring out these experiences, we bring humanity forward and we get to see the true, colors of humanity, which is so important for our next generations. Where now we're no longer looking at, wars of today and how we're going to hurt each other, but instead, how can we help each other as human society to look at some of these bigger challenges now? Space exploration, time, and like literally, you're seeing the quantum world is opening up.
Yep.
This is the future, and being able to now heal the human body to such a level where we can live for as long as we want. This is starting to happen now with age technology. These are the new battlefronts where we're now going to see where we need human beings who are thinking about this stuff. When AI comes in, and we could see now with things like Midjourney and DALL-E how powerful AI can be. We need technologists. We need people who've got mindsets who are thinking at that level rather than infighting over your color of skin or your male or female. These things are not going to matter in the future. What's going to matter is we've got artificial intelligence that is more powerful than human beings. And with the right human beings, we can direct those things in the right direction that'll help us. And we can start exploring space and these quantum technologies in ways that we never could before. That's my personal opinion on where this is going.
I think it is probably the most brilliant way of putting it. And a few days ago in Dubai, we had the Dubai Metaverse Assembly. And the keynote speaker, he said that, there are technologies which are keeping on going to be improving, but it's so important to have the human element. And the later part, you just mentioned exactly the same things. And you said it in a really beautiful and in a very, very kind way as well. What I wanted to ask is now, in reference to your business partners, do you have any message? What is it that they need to do now to get prepared for the metaverse? Any business advice for your business partners or even maybe your competitors as well?
I would say let's figure out what the metaverse is for. Instead of just, a quick cash flip and you're hoping for someone, foolish enough to come and buy an NFT because that's how you're going to make quick money. Wonderful in the short term. Yay, you're rich. Wonderful. How are we using metaverse? How are we benefiting humanity? Because at the end of the day, what's going to last is it's not going to be that you became a rich person by scamming people. What's going to last is a technology that touches lives and changes lives around the world for the better. And so if we can make real technologies that will help us to connect in better ways and do things, this is what I want to see is using this technology. Who's going to build that next Netflix of the future or the next Facebook of the future or the next Google of the future, but the metaverse edition of that, whatever that is, right? How is this going to be used and why do we need this as human society? I think that is going to be the real questions that we need to answer. And the money is going to be there when we provide real services and touch and change lives for the better. I think that's going to be so much more important than right now what's happening where people are just selling this land or these NFTs, which don't have any value, hopefully for a quick cash grab. And even with the NFT artists, I love them. They're incredible. There's so much a powerhouse. And you see, I've met so many who are doing real art. And when I mean real art, and of course, art is subjective, but in their heart, they know that they're creating something versus
Yep.
those who we know are scammers. In their heart, they went out to scam people because they're hoping to get rich quick. But I see some beautiful artists who are making some real art. They're thinking about this. They're like, how will my art touch humanity? This is the sort of stuff that I see with these beautiful NFT artists. And those are the types of NFTs that we want to own and that we want to cherish, which I think will do very well in the future. And I think it's a long-term play for those who are in the NFT and the metaverse space. That's my opinion on it, anyways.
100% agree to that. And one question which I wanted to ask is, where did the name Charmy come about? What was the motivation? And can you explain to our listeners what does that name mean and where did you get the indication for that name?
Thank you so much for that. So Chaarmi, we added two A's. And so what happened was I looked at a lot of different companies and, some of the biggest ones today, and everything was two syllables in general, LinkedIn, Facebook, Google, right? And so I was like, everyone has such long names, especially with Metaverse and you've got so many people doing metaverse this, metaverse that, and so their domain names were so massively long. And I'm just like, you know, many of the technologies that we see today don't even relate to the actual thing that it is. Like you don't say social media for Facebook, you just connect the two, right? You don't say professional, network for LinkedIn. You know what I mean? It's just, you don't say search engine for Google. You just now, these are separate words that we've now linked up to them because they did very well at what they were. And that's what we want to do with Chaarmi.
Yeah.
Chaarmi is a fun word. It sounds charming. That's, the idea. It's a very easy. It rolls right off the tongue. You get happy emotions. And that's the sort of stuff I want to put everyone into a state of happiness, hope. Just thinking of the future. It's Chaarmi. It's beautiful. Come on in into Chaarmi Galaxy and enjoy yourself. And that's the whole idea. Is we want to use that, and that's kind of how that word came about. If
Yeah,
that makes
and I
sense.
want to say that, earlier today, I have 4 interviews scheduled for today, and I was trying to recollect the names, and I know one of them is for sure Charmy, because it is so catchy, simple, and easy to understand. And the other three, I was just struggling just a little bit. So, definitely great explanation on using that name. And one thing which I wanted to find out is a decade or 2 decades from now, do you think the metaverse economy will be bigger than the real world economy, or probably sooner than that? What are your thoughts on that?
I would say it's always the future is always hard to predict. But if you imagine now, the metaverse GDP is going to be the planet's GDP. if you think about it, right? So yes, in my opinion, it will be bigger. However, the challenge now we're going to start facing is governments who are going to say, well, that GDP is mine. And another one that's going to say, that GDP is mine. How do we measure that? Are we going to have tokens? Like, is there going to be, let's say, you're in Dubai, is there going to be a Dubai token? Is there going to be a Canada token? Is there going to be a China token? I don't know, right? Like, how do we do that measurement? And so this is going to be interesting to see how we actually measure that. And then how does that money or those funds funnel to these countries? Because you need the money to actually grow your societies, right? You need that. And many governments are working really hard. I really truly appreciate what all of these governments are doing. It's not easy to run people, right? It's not easy at all. You've got, I love what China is doing. 1.3 billion people. It's huge. In India, billion people. It's not easy to do. It requires funds. And so how do we say what's a fair amount of funds? And if let's say in the metaverse, we've got, let's say, maybe in the physical, Dubai has, let's say, X amount of people, but they're making the most. Whereas, let's say India goes in or China goes in, they've got a lot of people and they're not making as much as they need to. Do we now reorganize that to make it more fair to, hey, you know what, because we're going on individual levels, we want to help all of humanity? Because I truly believe at the end of the day, as much as we are governments and people and organizations, we're one species and we need to push the species forward, or else, what world are we going to live in if everyone's dead?
That's a brilliant way of saying it as well. And I just have a few other questions, and one of them is, do you have any final words, let's say, to the listeners to know more about Charmy, and any special thoughts that you want to put it across to our listeners?
Yeah, it's at the end of the day, come on in, pay 99 to 149 US. Don't break your bank. Come and test out the metaverse, create a metaverse experience. You can make a full galaxy, right? It's up to you. The sky's the limit to you, but get into the metaverse today, now, so you can make the mistakes early without losing your shirt. Whereas many people are going to spend hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars to get the same result that they wanted, which is an answer. What is the metaverse for? With Chaarmi, you could do that today and now. Start today to figure that out so that 6 months, 1 year from now, you're not starting then. You know what I mean? When it's already, so many are going to be in the plate with Apple coming out with their glasses, Facebook, Meta coming out with their latest Pro glasses. And heck, 3 years from now, that is really going to be late then, because you're going to be like, all right, I'm starting now. Sure, you're starting, but the people who are starting in these early years are going to be the Facebooks, the Googles, the Amazons of the future, in my opinion.
I definitely agree. Being an early adopter in the metaverse will definitely have its advantages as well. One question which I wanted to ask, which is nothing to do with the metaverse, blockchain, or economy, anything. What is your favorite music genre and why?
Ah, um, that is so hard. I mean, I like a lot. It really depends on what the situation is. Like if I'm in the gym, it's gonna be hard rock, like really heavy music, or techno music, which is gonna get
Yeah.
me the blood pumping so I can pump those weights. But then if I'm walking in a park, it's classical.
Oh,
If I just want to hear some classical, something nice. Techno. When I'm working and
yeah.
I'm actually coding, I'll listen to some techno music on the code. Just like it keeps me going. And then I listen to something called binaural beats, which basically it actually has differences in the audio, and it actually puts you in a focus thing without any form of drugs or anything like that. I look for ways to do things in a healthy way, but still get these experiences, because there's times where you need to focus. So I would say my favorite genres of music change based on what the situation is, and so it'll change based on where I am in the environment.
Excellent. And if you're into fitness, are you into running at all? Because later on today, I'm interviewing the CEO of Spartan Race. I'm not sure if you've heard of
Nice.
Spartan Race. It is an obstacle course race. So
Amazing.
they have an NFT project. So I'm going to be interviewing them probably in the next 4 hours or so. So I'm going to
Amazing.
be
Yeah. Well,
asking
for me,
some.
I'm an NFPT certified, gym trainer. So I
Oh,
have the
excellent.
help. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So like Steve Jobs says, you don't know how the dots connect going forward. You can only connect them backward. I have my real estate license. I didn't know how real estate and video games would mix. Here I am today now, and they all merge, right? My health is so important. As a founder, I need to be healthy. Why did I get my, bodybuilding license and start taking care of my health to such levels? This is it. Like You don't know what's going to happen or why you need something. You learn about it in the future when it all starts coming together. And truly, I believe that, God put me on a path, for the metaverse. And I think that's exactly what it is.
That is absolutely excellent. And one final question is, how can listeners get in touch with you or find out more information about Charmy?
Beautiful. Just visit chaarmi.com. That's charmy.com with two A's. And everything you need is right there, from the videos to showcase the tech, how easy it is to use, and signing up. Please go sign up, get yourself a Galaxy. And you can even join me on LinkedIn. There's a
Mm,
LinkedIn link that we put over here.
yeah,
And please follow me along, follow my journey, and support me by getting yourself a Galaxy, getting into the metaverse, and just being part of our community as we grow. This is the key here. It's going to be done with all of you, and I'm so grateful to all of you, all of the listeners, and everyone who's getting into the metaverse today. The metaverse won't exist without you, so it needs you. So please come on in and let's grow this together. I'd love to have you sign up as well, and we'll get you set up with your own Galaxy. Try it out, experience it, and I'm telling you, it's a place where you can actually bring some of your users and have a nice little intimate session and say, hey,
absolutely.
come on in and see me. There you
Yeah,
go.
one of my goal is to have a metaverse podcast in the metaverse.
That's it.
So,
There you
rather
go.
than doing it on Zoom and rather than doing it maybe, on
It is
Google
the
Meet.
most unique experience that you're going to have. And that's exactly it. We want to bring people together, have a community. This is
Absolutely.
exactly what the metaverse is about. It's not just about having 3D graphics and making it look
Yep.
pretty, though it's important. It's the 3D internet, but it's also about us connecting communities together,
Yeah.
people together. That is the key.
Yeah. And if you do need any information, let's say from Dubai, because I do publish a daily podcast in crypto and coffee, which is Monday to Thursday. So if you do need any business connections in Dubai or Middle East, you can always give me a shout, and I'm more than happy to connect you to the right people. What I'll do is, now in the show notes, I'll mention your LinkedIn profile, I'll mention the YouTube video as well. And I'll also go ahead and mention the affiliate program and the website and pretty much everything listeners needs to know about Charmy. So brilliant. Thank you so very much for doing that. Now really, really appreciate the fact that we are doing it on a Tuesday, which is a rather busy day. Really appreciate, you taking the time to do this. Thank you so much for that.